My name is Mariam. I was 25 years old when my husband tied a rope around my wrists, threw it over a tree branch, and left me hanging in the desert to die, because I couldn't give him a child. I felt the burn of the rope tearing through my skin, the weight of my body pulling against my joints, and the silence of a dark sky that didn't care if I lived or died. They always say a wife should be a gift and fruitful, but when your womb is empty, they treat you like a curse. I thought that night would be my end. No one was supposed to find me. No one was supposed to hear me cry. He came in light and power. He cut the rope that held me. He spoke my name like I mattered. And from that night on, I belonged to him. I was born and raised in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, in a home where Islam was not just a religion but the air we breathed. My father owned several textile shops near the old market in the Al-Bala district. He was a respected merchant, known for his honesty and his devotion to Allah. My mother never left the house without her full black abaya and niqab. She prayed 5 times a day, without fail. She taught me to do the same from the time I was 7 years old. I was the youngest of 4 daughters. My older sisters were all married by the time they turned 18. Each of them had children within the first 2 years of marriage. When it was my turn to be married, my parents were especially careful. They wanted to choose a man who was not only wealthy, but also respected in the community. They wanted a man whose name carried weight, whose position carried honor. And so when I was 17, I was introduced to a man named Ahmed. He was 32 years old. He had just been appointed the lead Imam at one of the largest mosques in Jeddah. He was tall and serious, with a thick beard and a voice that commanded attention. My father was overjoyed. My mother cried tears of happiness and told me I was the most fortunate girl in our family. The wedding took place 6 months later. It was a large celebration. I sat on a stage while everyone stared at me. Ahmed did not attend the women's section of the wedding. That was normal. I only saw him later that night when I was taken to his family's home. He was waiting in a large bedroom. The door closed behind me. He looked at me for a long moment, then told me to sit. He recited a short dua, a prayer, before approaching me. There was no warmth in his voice, no gentleness in his hands. He touched me because it was his right as my husband. When he finished, he turned away from me and went to sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was what love was supposed to feel like. In the beginning, I told myself that Ahmed's coldness was normal. He was a busy man. He led prayers at the mosque 5 times a day. He gave religious lessons to young men. He was invited to speak at Islamic conferences. People in Jeddah respected him. When we walked together in public, men would greet him and lower their heads. Women would step aside. I felt proud to be his wife. I believed that if I was obedient, if I prayed hard enough, if I served him well, then Allah would bless our marriage. I kept the house spotless. I cooked his meals exactly the way his mother taught me. I never raised my voice. I never complained. I wore what he told me to wear. I stayed home unless he gave me permission to visit my mother. I did everything a good Muslim wife was supposed to do. And I waited. I waited for my body to show the signs that I was pregnant. I waited for the nausea, the cravings, the missed cycles. I waited for the moment I could tell Ahmed that we were going to have a child. But the months passed and nothing happened. At first, I was not worried. My mother told me that some women take longer than others. But by the end of the first year, people started asking questions. Ahmed's mother would visit our home and stare at my stomach. She would ask me if I was eating well, if I was praying on time, if I was doing anything that might anger Allah. The women at the mosque began whispering. I could feel their eyes on me during gatherings. One of them asked me directly, "Sister Mariam, any good news?" Yet I smiled and said, "Inshallah soon." But inside I felt ashamed. Ahmed started asking me the same question. At first, he was patient. But after the second year passed with no pregnancy, his tone changed. One night, he sat across from me at dinner and said, "Have you been praying for a child?" I nodded quickly. "Yes, of course. Every day." He stared at me for a long moment. Then why has Allah not answered? I did not know what to say. He stood up and left the room without finishing his food. Ahmed took me to see doctors. We went to a private hospital in Jeddah first. The doctor was a woman. She asked me many questions, examined me, and took blood samples. A week later, the results came back. She told us that I was perfectly healthy. There was no infection, no blockage, no hormone imbalance. Everything was normal. Ahmed was not satisfied. He took me to another hospital in Riyadh. We saw a specialist there who did more tests. Again, the results were the same. I was medically fine. Then we went to a doctor in Dubai, who is known across the Gulf for treating infertility. He ran the same tests. He even did an ultrasound. And once again, he told us, "There is nothing wrong with your wife." I thought Ahmed would be relieved. I thought he would accept that maybe we just needed more time, that maybe it was Allah's plan for us to wait. But that is not what happened. Instead, Ahmed grew angry. Not at the doctors, not at the results, at me. In our culture, in our religion, in our community, there is an unspoken rule. A man is never blamed for infertility, especially not a man like Ahmed. He was an Imam. He was a scholar. He led hundreds of men in prayer. He recited the Quran from memory. How could a man like him be weak? How could his body be flawed? It was impossible. And so, even though every single medical test said I was healthy, the blame still fell on me. Ahmed's mother started saying that I was cursed. She told him that some women carry spiritual blockages that doctors cannot see. She brought an older woman to our house one afternoon, someone she called a healer. The woman burned incense in every room. She made me drink a bitter tea made from herbs I had never heard of. She placed her hand on my stomach and whispered prayers I did not recognize. Then she looked at Ahmed's mother and said, "There is something blocking her womb. She must repent. She must ask Allah for forgiveness." I wanted to scream. Forgiveness for what had I done, but I stayed silent, because that is what I had been taught to do. Ahmed stopped speaking to me unless it was necessary. He no longer called me by my name. When his friends visited, he would refer to me as the woman or my wife in a tone that sounded like disgust. At night, he stopped coming to my room. Weeks would go by without him touching me. I asked him once, quietly, why he was avoiding me. He looked at me with empty eyes and said, "What is the point? Allah has already decided." I did not know if he meant that Allah had decided I would never have children, or that Allah had decided I was worthless. Maybe to Ahmed, those two things were the same. I began to feel like a ghost in my own home. I moved through the rooms silently. I cooked, I cleaned, I prayed, but no one saw me. No one spoke to me, unless they had to. I started to wonder if I was being punished. Maybe I had sinned in a way I did not understand. Maybe my prayers were not sincere enough. Maybe I was not good enough for Allah to bless. One evening, Ahmed's uncle came to visit. His name was Khalid. He was older than Ahmed, a retired businessman who still had influence in the family. I served them tea and dates in the sitting room, then stepped back quietly, waiting to be dismissed. But Khalid did not lower his voice. He spoke loudly, as if I was not even there. "Ahmed, you are a young man. You are an Imam. You have a reputation to maintain. People are starting to talk. They are wondering why you have no children. You cannot let this continue." Ahmed sipped his tea and said nothing. Khalid continued, "There is no shame in taking a second wife. It is your right. It is Islamically permissible. Find a younger woman, someone whose womb is proven, someone who can give you sons." My hands shook as I held the teapot. I wanted to run. I wanted to disappear, but I stayed frozen in place, my head down, my heart breaking. Ahmed finally spoke. "I have thought about it." Those 4 words shattered me. That night, I knelt on my prayer mat, and I cried until I could not breathe. I begged Allah to help me. I begged him to open my womb. "Please, Allah, please do not forget me." But there was no answer. Just silence. Just the cold towel beneath my knees and the empty sky above. I realized then that I was alone. Completely alone. And I began to believe what everyone around me had been saying. Maybe I really was cursed. Maybe Allah really had turned his face away from me. Maybe I really did not deserve to live. The whispers started small, but they grew louder every day. At first, it was just Ahmed's mother making comments during her visits. Then it was the women at the mosque who would smile at me with pity in their eyes. Then it spread to the neighbors, to distant relatives, to people I had never even met. Everyone in our part of Jeddah seemed to know that I was the Imam's wife who could not have children. They did not say it to my face most of the time, but I heard it in the way they spoke to me. Ahmed's coldness turned into cruelty. He no longer just avoided me. He started speaking to me in ways that made me feel smaller than an insect. One night, I brought his dinner to the table and set it in front of him. He looked at the plate, then looked at me, and said, "Even the food you make tastes like disappointment." I stood there frozen, not knowing how to respond. He pushed the plate away and stood up. "You are useless in every way," he said. Ahmed began talking openly about taking a second wife. He did not hide it from me anymore. He would sit with his friends in our living room and discuss it as if I were not even in the house. I would be in the kitchen preparing tea, and I could hear everything they said. One of his friends, a man named Faisal, told him, "Brother, you have been patient long enough. It is your right under Islamic law to marry again. Find a young woman from a good family, someone fertile, someone who can give you the sons you deserve." Ahmed responded, "I have already spoken to a few families. There is a girl, 19 years old, from a respected family in Mecca. Her father is a businessman. Her mother has had 6 children. Good bloodline." My hand shook so badly that I almost dropped the tray I was holding. I felt like I was being erased, like I was being replaced before I was even gone. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw the tray across the room, but instead I walked in quietly, served the tea with my head down, and left the room without saying a word. The shame I carried became so heavy that I stopped leaving the house unless absolutely necessary. I stopped going to the mosque because I could not stand the looks anymore. One evening, Ahmed came home earlier than usual. I was in the kitchen washing dishes when he walked in and stood in the doorway watching me. I could feel his eyes on my back, but I did not turn around. He finally spoke. "Mariam, we need to talk," he said. "You have been my wife for more than 5 years. In that time, you have given me nothing. No children, no honor, only shame. But it is clear now that Allah has made his decision. You are not meant to be a mother." Tears filled my eyes. I whispered, "Please, Ahmed, please do not give up on me." He shook his head slowly. "This is not about giving up. This is about accepting reality. You are barren, and a barren woman has no place in the home of an imam." He stepped closer. His voice dropped lower, quieter, but somehow more terrifying. "There are rules in Islam for women like you, women who cannot fulfill their purpose. I have every right to divorce you. I have every right to send you back to your father's house in disgrace. But I have decided to give you one more chance." My heart pounded. I did not understand what he meant. He said, "I am going to marry a second wife, a younger woman. If she gives me a son, you will remain in this house as a servant. You will cook, you will clean, you will take care of her children. If you accept this, I will allow you to stay. If you refuse, I will divorce you and you will leave with nothing." I felt the room spin. I could barely breathe. I whispered, "You want me to raise another woman's children?" He nodded. "That is the only value you have left." I stared at him. This man I had been taught to obey. This man I had prayed for. This man I had given my whole life to. And I realized he did not see me as a human being. He saw me as a tool that had stopped working. That night, after Ahmed left the house, I collapsed on the floor of my bedroom. I could not stop shaking. I could not stop crying. Ahmed was waiting by the car when I came outside. He did not open the door for me. He just got into the driver's seat and started the engine. I climbed into the back seat because that is where he always told me to sit. He said it was more appropriate. That people should not see a woman sitting beside a man, even if that man was her husband. After about 40 minutes, Ahmed slowed the car and turned off the main road. Ahmed reached into the trunk and pulled out a coil of rope. My heart stopped. I took a step back. Ahmed, what are you doing? He did not answer. He walked toward me and grabbed my arm. I tried to pull away, but his grip was too strong. Please, I begged. Please, whatever I did, I am sorry. Please do not hurt me. He looked at me then, and his eyes were empty. There was no anger, no sadness, just cold decision. You did not do anything, he said. You simply failed to do what you were created for. And now you are a burden I can no longer carry. He dragged me toward the largest tree. I screamed. I begged. I cried. I tried to fight him, but he was too strong. He forced me to the ground and pulled my arms behind my back. He wrapped the rope around my wrists so tightly that it cut into my skin. I felt the rough fibers digging into my flesh. I felt my skin tearing. I screamed louder, but there was no one to hear me. Just the wind and the sand and the empty sky. Ahmed threw the other end of the rope over a thick branch above my head. He pulled on it, and suddenly my arms were yanked upward. The pain in my shoulders was instant and unbearable. He kept pulling until my feet were barely touching the ground. Then he tied the rope to the base of the tree trunk and stepped back. I was hanging there, my body weight pulling on my wrists, my shoulders screaming in agony. My toes scraped against the sand, trying to take some of the pressure off my arms. But it was not enough. I could barely breathe. Every breath sent sharp pains through my chest and shoulders. I looked at Ahmed through my tears. Please, I gasped. Please do not leave me here. I will do anything. I will be better. I will try harder. Please. He stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, a woman who cannot give her husband children does not deserve to live. You have shamed me. You have shamed my family. You have shamed the name of Allah. This is what you deserve. He turned and walked back to the car. I screamed after him. Ahmed, please. Please do not do this. I am your wife, please. He got into the car without looking back. The engine started. The headlights turned away from me. And then he drove off into the darkness. I watched the red taillights disappear into the desert. I listened to the sound of the engine fade into nothing. And then I was alone. Completely, horribly alone. I hung there in the dark, my body trembling, my wrists bleeding, my shoulders dislocating. The pain was so intense that I thought I would pass out. But I did not. I stayed awake. I stayed conscious. And I felt every second of it. The wind blew sand against my face. The night grew colder. I could see the stars above me, thousands of them, cold and distant. I thought about how small I was, how meaningless, how easily I could disappear and no one would even know. I do not know how long I hung there before the pain became too much to fight. My arms went numb. My legs stopped trying to hold me up. My head dropped forward. I could taste blood in my mouth from biting my tongue. My vision blurred. I thought about my mother. I wondered if she would ever know what happened to me. I thought about my sisters and their children. I thought about the life I had wanted, the life I had prayed for, the life that was never going to happen. I thought about all the times I had begged Allah to help me, to fix me, to make me enough. And I realized that no one was coming. No one was going to save me. I was going to die out here alone. And my body would hang from this tree until the desert claimed it. I closed my eyes and waited for the end. My breaths became shallow. My heartbeat slowed. I felt myself slipping away. And in that moment, I did something I had never done before. I stopped praying to Allah. Instead, I whispered into the darkness, God, if you are real, if you can hear me, please help me. I do not want to die like this. Please. The wind stopped. Everything went silent. I opened my eyes. At first, I thought I was dying. I thought my mind was playing tricks on me. Because the air around me had changed. It felt heavier, warmer, like something had stepped into the space around me. And then I saw light. Not the light of the moon. Not the light of a car. This was different. It was bright. but it did not hurt my eyes. It was warm, but it did not burn. It filled the entire desert around me like the sun had fallen from the sky. I blinked, trying to understand what I was seeing. And then I saw him, a man standing in front of me. He was not dressed like anyone I had ever seen. His clothes were simple, almost ancient. His face was kind. His eyes were full of something I could not name. He looked at me, and I felt like he could see everything. Every pain, every fear, every broken piece of me. And he did not look away. He spoke. His voice was calm and gentle, but it carried authority that made the desert itself feel small. "Mariam," he said. I gasped. He knew my name. How did he know my name? He stepped closer. "Do not be afraid," he said. "I have seen every tear you have cried. I have heard every prayer you whispered in the dark. I know what has been done to you, and I have come to save you." I tried to speak, but no words came out. I just stared at him, trembling, barely able to breathe. He reached up toward the rope that held me. He did not untie it. He did not cut it. He simply touched it. And the moment his hand made contact, the rope turned to dust. It fell away like sand. My arms dropped. My body collapsed forward, but I did not hit the ground. He caught me. His arms were strong and steady. He held me like I weighed nothing. He lowered me gently to the sand and knelt beside me. I lay there gasping, my whole body shaking. My wrists were bleeding. My shoulders were on fire, but I was alive. I looked up at him, and tears poured down my face. "Who are you?" I whispered. He smiled. It was the kindest smile I had ever seen. "I am Jesus," he said. My heart stopped. Jesus. I had heard that name before. It was in the Quran. Ibn Mariam. A prophet. But this was not just a prophet. This was something more. Something greater. I could feel it. The power that radiated from him was not human. It was divine. He placed his hand on my head. "You are not barren, Mariam," he said softly. "You are not cursed. You are not broken. You are mine." I started sobbing. Not from pain. From something else. Something I had never felt before. It was like a dam had broken inside me. All the shame, all the fear, all the years of being told I was worthless, all of it came pouring out. And he just stayed there beside me, his hand on my head, letting me cry. After a long time, he spoke again. "You have suffered because of lies. Lies about your worth. Lies about who God is. Lies about what love means. But I tell you the truth. You are loved. You are seen. You are valued. Not because of what you can produce. Not because of what you can give to men. But because you are my creation. And I do not make mistakes." I looked up at him through my tears. But I prayed, I whispered. I prayed to Allah for years. He never answered me. Jesus looked into my eyes. "You were praying to a God who demands but does not love. I am the God who loves without demand. I did not come to condemn you, Mariam. I came to set you free." He stood and reached down to help me to my feet. I was weak, but he held me steady. The light around us began to fade slowly. The desert returned to darkness. But he was still there. "What do I do now?" I asked. He looked toward the horizon. "You will go back, and you will live. And one day, you will tell the world what I have done for you." Then he was gone. The light disappeared. The warmth faded. I stood alone in the desert under the stars. But I was not the same. Something inside me had changed. I looked down at my wrists. The rope burns were still there. The blood was real. But I was free. I fell to my knees in the sand, and I wept. Not in despair. In gratitude. I did not understand everything that had just happened. I did not know what it meant. But I knew one thing. Jesus had saved my life. And nothing would ever be the same. I do not know how long I knelt there in the sand after Jesus disappeared. My body was shaking. My mind was spinning. Everything I'd been taught my entire life felt like it had been turned upside down. I had grown up believing that Jesus was just a prophet, a messenger sent by Allah, nothing more. But what I had just experienced was not the work of a prophet. It was the work of God himself. The way he spoke my name, the way he knew my pain, the way the rope turned to dust at his touch, the way his presence filled the entire desert with light and warmth. That was not human power. That was divine power. I walked for what felt like hours. The sand was soft and hard to move through. My feet sank with every step. I fell several times, but each time I got back up, I kept thinking about what Jesus had said to me. You are not barren. You are not cursed. You are mine. Those words repeated in my mind over and over. They gave me strength when my body wanted to give up. I did not understand what they meant yet. I did not know what it meant to belong to Jesus. But I knew that he had saved me when no one else would. He had come when I called, and that was more than anyone else had ever done. After a long time, I saw lights in the distance. Small orange lights that flickered like stars on the horizon. I started walking faster. My heart pounded with hope. As I got closer, I realized it was a small road. There were a few trucks parked on the side. It looked like a rest stop for drivers traveling between cities. I stumbled toward the road. A man was sitting outside one of the trucks drinking tea from a thermos. When he saw me, his eyes went wide. He stood up quickly and called out, "Sister, are you okay? I must have looked terrible." My abaya was torn and covered in sand. My face was dirty and streaked with tears. My wrists were still bleeding. I tried to speak, but my throat was so dry that only a whisper came out. "Please help me." The man rushed over and caught me just as my legs gave out. He called another man nearby. "Bring water." Quickly, someone brought a bottle of water and held it to my lips. I drank desperately, coughing and gasping. The first man asked, "What happened to you? Were you in an accident? Where is your family?" I shook my head. I did not know what to say. I cannot tell him the truth. If I told him that my husband, an Imam, had hung me from a tree and left me to die, what would he do? Would he believe me? Or would he take me back to Ahmed? I decided to lie. My husband and I had an argument, I said quietly. He left me on the side of the road. I got lost trying to find my way back. The men looked at each other with disapproval. "What kind of man leaves his wife in the desert?" one of them muttered. But they did not ask more questions. They helped me into the back of one of the trucks and gave me a blanket. One of the drivers said he was heading back to Jeddah and he would take me to a hospital. I thanked him. I sat in the back of the truck as it drove through the night, wrapped in the blanket, staring out at the dark desert passing by. I thought about Ahmed. I thought about the look in his eyes when he tied me to that tree. He had not hesitated. He had not shown any doubt. He truly believed that I deserved to die. And now I was going back to the same city where he lived. I was terrified, but I had nowhere else to go. The truck driver dropped me off at a small public hospital on the edge of Jeddah just before dawn. I walked into the emergency room alone. I did not go home. I could not. I was too afraid. Instead, I went to my mother's house. It was early morning when I knocked on the door. My mother opened it, still in her nightclothes, and gasped when she saw me. "Mariam, what happened to you?" She pulled me inside quickly and closed the door. I broke down. I told her everything. I told her about the years of shame. I told her about Ahmed's cruelty. I told her that he had taken me into the desert and hung me from a tree. I told her that I should be dead. But something miraculous had happened. I did not tell her about Jesus. Not yet. I was too afraid. I just said that the rope broke and I was able to escape. My mother held me while I cried. But when I finished, her face was filled with fear, not anger. "Mariam, you cannot tell anyone about this," she said. "If people find out that Ahmed did this, it will bring shame on our entire family. People will ask what you did to make him so angry. They will blame you." I stared at her in disbelief. "Mama, he tried to kill me." She shook her head. "I know, Habibti. I know. But he is an Imam. He is respected. No one will believe you. And even if they do, they will say you must have deserved it." Her words broke my heart. Even my own mother would not stand with me. She was more afraid of shame than she was angry about what had been done to her daughter. "Go back to your husband," she said. "Apologize. Try to fix things. This is your life, Mariam. You must accept it. I did not argue with her, but I knew I could not go back. Not to that house. Not to that man. Not to that life. I stayed quiet and pretended to agree. But inside, I was making a plan. I was going to survive. And I was going to find out more about the man who had saved me. After a week, I returned to Ahmed's house. I had no choice. I had no money. I had nowhere else to go. When I walked through the door, Ahmed was sitting in the living room reading the Quran. He looked up at me. His face showed no surprise, no relief, no guilt. He just stared at me like I was an insect that had crawled back into his house. "So you survived," he said flatly. I did not respond. I just stood there. He closed the Quran and set it on the table. "I do not know how you got out of that desert," he said, "but it does not matter. You're back here now, and you will not speak of what happened. Do you understand?" I nodded. From that moment, I became a prisoner in my own home. But at night, when Ahmed was asleep, I would kneel on the floor and pray. Not to Allah, to Jesus. I did not know how to pray to him. I did not know the right words, but I would whisper into the darkness, "Jesus, thank you for saving me. Please do not leave me alone. Please help me understand what is happening." And every time I prayed, I felt that same warmth I had felt in the desert. That same presence. It was faint, but it was real. I knew he was with me. One day, while cleaning Ahmed's office, I found something hidden behind a stack of books on a high shelf. It was a small black book with gold letters on the cover. I pulled it down and opened it. My heart stopped. It was a Bible. I had never seen one before. In Saudi Arabia, owning a Bible is illegal. If anyone found out Ahmed had one, even as an Imam, it would cause a huge scandal. I did not understand why he had it. Maybe he kept it to study other religions. Maybe he kept it to argue against Christianity. I did not know, but I knew this was a gift. I took the Bible and hid it in my room under my mattress. That night, after Ahmed went to sleep, I pulled it out and opened it carefully. I could read English because I had studied in school, but I was not very good. I started reading slowly. I did not understand everything, but I kept going. I read about a man named Jesus, who healed the sick, who forgave sinners, who loved people that everyone else hated. And I realized this was the same man who had saved me in the desert. I read every night. I hid the Bible during the day and pulled it out when it was safe. I read about Jesus calling disciples. I read about him feeding thousands of people with just a few loaves of bread. I read about him calming a storm with his voice. I read about him raising a dead man back to life. And the more I read, the more I understood. This was not just a prophet. This was God in human form. He had come to earth not to condemn people, but to save them. He had died on a cross and risen from the dead, so that people could be forgiven and set free. I wept as I read, because for the first time in my life, I understood what love really was. It was not controlled. It was not ownership. It was a sacrifice. Jesus had sacrificed everything for me, and he was asking nothing in return except my heart. One night, I knelt beside my bed with the Bible open in front of me. I placed my hands on the pages and I prayed, "Jesus, I do not fully understand everything yet, but I believe you are real. I believe you saved me. I believe you love me, and I want to follow you. I do not care what it costs. I do not care what happens to me. I am yours." And in that moment, something shifted inside me. I felt a peace I had never known, a freedom I had never experienced. I was still trapped in Ahmed's house. I was still alone. I was still afraid, but I was no longer hopeless, because I knew that no matter what happened, Jesus was with me, and that was enough. 3 weeks after I gave my life to Jesus, I woke up feeling sick. At first, I thought it was because I had not been eating well. Ahmed rarely gave me money for food, and I had been surviving on rice and bread for days. But this sickness was different. I felt nauseous in the mornings. My body felt heavy. I was tired all the time, even though I had done nothing but sit in my room. I ignored it for a few days. thinking it would pass. But it did not pass. It got worse. One morning, I vomited twice before I could even leave my room. I sat on the bathroom floor trying to catch my breath. And suddenly a thought came to my mind that made my heart stop. I counted back the weeks in my head. I tried to remember the last time I had my monthly cycle, and I realized it had been more than a month, maybe closer to 2 months. My hands started shaking. I whispered out loud to myself, "No, it cannot be. It is impossible." But deep inside I knew. I was pregnant. I did not understand how. Ahmed had not touched me in many months. The last time had been long before he took me to the desert. There was no way this made sense. But my body was telling me something my mind could not deny. I thought back to the night in the desert when Jesus had stood in front of me and said, "You are not barren." I thought about the warmth I had felt when he touched my head. I thought about the peace that had filled me when I prayed to him for the first time. And I realized that this was not a normal pregnancy. This was a miracle. Jesus had opened my womb. He had given me the one thing that everyone said I could never have. I sat on that bathroom floor and cried. Not from fear, from overwhelming gratitude. I whispered, "Thank you, Jesus. Thank you." I knew this child was not from Ahmed. This child was a gift from God himself. I kept the pregnancy a secret for as long as I could. I did not want Ahmed to know. I did not want his family to know. I was terrified of what they would do if they found out. But after a few more weeks, my body began to change in ways I could not hide. My stomach started to grow. My face looked fuller. I felt the baby move inside me. Small flutters at first, then stronger kicks. One afternoon, Ahmed's mother came to the house unannounced, as she always did. She walked into the kitchen, where I was preparing tea. She looked at me for a long moment, her eyes narrowing. Then she said, "Mariam, come here." I walked toward her slowly, my heart pounding. She reached out and placed her hand on my stomach. Her eyes went wide. She gasped. "You are pregnant," she said. I did not respond. I just stood there frozen. She grabbed my arm tightly. "How long?" she demanded. I whispered, "I do not know. Maybe 2 months." She let go of me and stepped back, her face filled with shock. Then she smiled. It was not a kind smile. It was a smile of victory. She immediately called Ahmed. He came home within the hour. His mother was waiting for him in the living room, and I was told to sit on the couch. Ahmed walked in and looked at me with suspicion. His mother spoke before I could say anything. "Your wife is pregnant," she announced. Ahmed's face did not change. He stared at me in silence for a long time. Then he said, "That is impossible." His mother shook her head. I felt her stomach myself. "She is pregnant. There is no doubt." Ahmed turned to me. How he asked coldly. I looked down. I could not tell him the truth. I could not tell him that I believed Jesus had done this. So I said nothing. He stepped closer. "Answer me. How is this possible? I have not touched you in months." I whispered, "I do not know." He grabbed my chin and forced me to look at him. "Do not lie to me," he said. His mother interrupted. "Ahmed, it does not matter how it happened. What matters is that she is carrying your child. This is a blessing from Allah. After all these years, he has finally answered." Ahmed let go of me and stepped back. He looked at his mother, then at me, then back at his mother. I could see the thoughts moving behind his eyes. He did not believe this was his child, but he also could not afford to reject it. If he accused me of adultery, he would have to provide proof, and there was no proof because I had done nothing wrong. If he divorced me now, while I was pregnant, people would ask questions. It would create scandal. But if he accepted the child as his own, he would finally have the heir he had always wanted. He would have the son that would restore his honor. I watched him think through all of this in silence. Finally, he spoke. "We will go to the doctor," he said. "We will confirm this. And if it is true, then Allah has shown mercy." His mother clapped her hands together. "Alhamdulillah," she said. "Praise be to Allah." But Ahmed did not look happy. He looked suspicious. And I knew that I was not safe. The next day, Ahmed took me to a private hospital in Jeddah. We saw a female doctor who did an ultrasound. I lay on the table while she moved the scanner across my stomach. Ahmed stood in the corner with his arms crossed, watching the screen. The doctor smiled. "Congratulations," she said. "You are about 10 weeks pregnant. The baby is healthy. The heartbeat is strong." She turned the screen toward us, and I saw it. A tiny shape. A flicker of movement. My child. Tears filled my eyes. I placed my hand on my stomach and whispered, "Thank you, Jesus." The doctor printed out pictures from the ultrasound and handed them to Ahmed. He took them without saying a word. On the drive home, he did not speak to me, but I could feel his anger. He did not believe this child was his, but he could not prove it was not, and that made him furious. When we got home, he told me, "You will stay in this house. You will not leave. You will not speak to anyone. You will do exactly what I say. Do you understand?" I nodded. I had no choice. Word spread quickly. Ahmed's mother told the family. The family told the community. Within days, everyone in our social circle knew that the Imam's wife was finally pregnant. People who had ignored me for years suddenly smiled at me. Women who had whispered about me now congratulated me. Ahmed's friends patted him on the back and praised Allah for blessing him. But none of it felt real. I was being celebrated, but I was still a prisoner. Ahmed watched me constantly. He took away any freedom I had left. I was not allowed to go to my mother's house. I was not allowed to answer the door. I was not allowed to use the phone. He told everyone that I needed rest, that the pregnancy was delicate, that I had to be protected, but I knew the truth. He was keeping me locked up because he did not trust me. He wanted to control everything. He wanted to make sure that when the baby was born, no one would question whether it was his. As my stomach grew, so did my fear. I knew that once the baby was born, Ahmed would take full control. He would claim the child as his own. He would raise the child to be like him, to follow Islam, to hate everything I had come to believe. I could not let that happen. This child was a gift from Jesus. This child was a miracle, and I had to protect him. I began to pray more desperately than ever before. Every night, I would kneel beside my bed with my hands on my stomach and pray, "Jesus, please show me what to do. Please help me escape. Please protect my baby." I read the Bible every chance I got. I read about Moses, who was born under a death sentence but was saved by God. I read about Mary, who carried Jesus in her womb and trusted God even when she did not understand. I read about women who were brave, who stood against impossible situations, who believed that God would make a way. And I asked Jesus to make a way for me. One evening, a new housemaid came to work at her home. Her name was Lucia. She was from the Philippines. She was quiet and kind, and she did her work without speaking much. But one day, while she was cleaning my room, I noticed something. She was wearing a small silver cross on a chain around her neck. It was tucked under her collar, almost hidden. But I saw it. My heart started racing. I waited until we were alone. And then I whispered to her in English, "You are Christian." She looked at me with wide, fearful eyes. She quickly tucked the cross deeper under her shirt and shook her head. "No, madam. I am Muslim." But I saw the fear in her face. I saw the truth. I reached out and gently touched her hand. "It is okay," I whispered. "I am too." She froze. She stared at me for a long moment. Then tears filled her eyes. "You followed Jesus," she whispered. I nodded. She looked around to make sure no one was listening. Then she whispered, "So do I." From that day on, Lucia became my lifeline. She would come to my room when Ahmed was at the mosque, and we would pray together quietly. She told me that there were many secret Christians in Jeddah. Filipinos, Indians, Ethiopians, Indonesians. People who worked as maids, drivers, nurses, construction workers. They could not worship openly because it was illegal. But they met in secret. They prayed in hiding. They supported each other. She told me about a network of believers who help people escape dangerous situations. If you want to leave, She said carefully, "There are people who can help you." I looked at her with hope for the first time in months. "Can they help me leave Saudi Arabia?" I asked. She nodded slowly. "It is dangerous. But yes, they have done it before." I grabbed her hands. "Please," I said. "Please help me. I need to get my baby out of here. I need to protect him." She nodded. "I will ask. But you must be ready. When the time comes, you will have to move quickly." Over the next few weeks, Lucia brought me information. She told me about a driver who worked for a catering company. His name was Samuel. He was a Christian from Kenya. He had helped other women escape before. She said that he could smuggle me out of Jeddah during a large event when security would be distracted. "There is a wedding coming," Lucia said. "A very big wedding for a royal family. Ahmed will be there as the Imam. The house will be empty except for a few workers. That is when we will move." I felt my heart pound with fear and hope at the same time. I was 7 months pregnant. My stomach was large. It would be hard to move quickly, but I had no other choice. I agreed. Lucia began preparing. She brought me simple clothes, a plain black abaya, a dark scarf, flat shoes. She hid them in my closet under old blankets. She gave me a phone, a small cheap phone that was not connected to anything Ahmed could trace. "You will only use this once," she said. "When Samuel calls you, you answer. And then you run." The night of the wedding finally came. Ahmed left the house early in the evening dressed in his finest white thobe and bisht. He was going to perform the nikah, the marriage ceremony, for a wealthy family. It was a huge honor. He would be gone for hours. After he left, Lucia came to my room. "It is time," she said. My hands were shaking. I changed into the plain clothes she had brought me. I wrapped the scarf tightly around my head and face. I looked at myself in the mirror. I did not look like the Imam's wife anymore. I looked like any other woman on the street. I took the Bible from under my mattress and tucked it into the inside pocket of my abaya. I placed my hand on my stomach and whispered, "Jesus, please walk with us." Lucia led me quietly through the house and out the back door. A small white car was waiting in the alley behind the house. The driver, Samuel, opened the door. "Get in," he said. Quickly, I climbed into the back seat. Lucia squeezed my hand. "Go with God," she whispered. Then she closed the door. Samuel drove through the streets of Jeddah carefully, obeying every traffic law, stopping at every red light. He did not speak. I sat in the back seat with my heart pounding, waiting for someone to stop us, waiting for Ahmed to appear, waiting for everything to fall apart. But nothing happened. We drove out of the city, past the checkpoints, onto the highway heading north. After 2 hours, Samuel pulled off the road and stopped at a small gas station. Another car was waiting there. A woman got out. She was wearing a full niqab. She opened my door and said in English, "Come with me. You are safe now." I looked at Samuel. He nodded. "Go. Trust her." I got out of his car and into hers. She drove for another 3 hours. I did not know where we were going. I did not ask. I just prayed. Finally, we stopped at a small house on the edge of a town I did not recognize. She led me inside. There were other women there. They hugged me. They gave me water and food. They prayed over me in the name of Jesus. And for the first time in months, I felt safe. I stayed in that safe house for 2 weeks. The women who ran it were kind and patient. They did not ask many questions. They just gave me food, a clean bed, and safety. Most of them were from other countries, Ethiopia, Eritrea, the Philippines. Some were widows. Some had escaped abusive marriages. Some had lost everything because they chose to follow Jesus. We prayed together every morning and every evening. They sang worship songs in different languages. I did not know the words, but I hummed along. For the first time in my life, I felt what it was like to be part of a family that was not held together by blood or obligation, but by love. They treated me like a sister. They touched my stomach gently and prayed over my baby. One woman, her name was Ruth, told me, "Your baby is a gift from God. He will grow up free." He will grow up knowing the truth. That is worth everything you have suffered. Her words gave me strength when fear tried to creep back in. During those 2 weeks, the women helped me prepare for the next part of my escape. They explained I could not stay in Saudi Arabia. It was only a matter of time before Ahmed found me. He had money, influence, and connections. He could search for me. He could accuse me of kidnapping his child. He could use his position as an imam to make my life impossible. The only option was to leave the country completely. But leaving Saudi Arabia as a woman, especially a pregnant woman without her husband's permission, was nearly impossible. Women in Saudi Arabia need permission from a male guardian to travel. Without that permission, I would be stopped at the airport or the border. But the network of believers had a plan. They had done this before. There was a man named Joseph who worked at a border crossing between Saudi Arabia and Jordan. He was a Christian. He had helped other women escape by creating fake travel documents and coordinating with truck drivers who crossed the border regularly. It was risky. If we were caught, we would all be arrested. But it was my only chance. One evening, Ruth came to me and said, "Joseph has everything ready. Tomorrow night, you will leave." My heart started pounding. I was excited and terrified at the same time. She handed me a bag with clothes, a little money, and a fake ID card with my picture but a different name. "When you cross the border, you are no longer Mariam," she said. "You are Amira. You are a widow traveling to visit family in Jordan. Do not speak unless you are asked a question. Keep your head down. Stay calm. Jesus is with you." That night, I could not sleep. I lay in bed with my hands on my stomach, feeling my baby kick. I whispered to him, "We're going to be free. You are going to grow up in a place where no one will hurt you, where no one will tell you that you are worthless. You are going to know Jesus. You are going to know love." I prayed until the sun came up. I thanked Jesus for everything he had done. I asked him to continue protecting us, and I surrendered my fear into his hands. The next evening, a truck arrived at the safe house. It was a large delivery truck carrying boxes of goods being transported to Jordan. The driver was a quiet man named Youssef. He did not say much. He just opened the back of the truck and pointed to a space between the boxes. "You will hide there," he said. "It will be uncomfortable. It will be hot. But you must stay completely silent. If the guards hear anything, we are all finished." I climbed into the back of the truck and squeezed into the narrow space. Ruth handed me a bottle of water and a cloth to cover my face, in case there was dust. She kissed my forehead. "Go in peace, sister," she said. "We will pray for you." Then the door closed. I was surrounded by darkness. I could hear Youssef get into the front of the truck and start the engine. We began to move. I sat in that dark space for hours. The truck bounced and shook on the rough road. The air was thick and hot. I could barely breathe. My back ached. My legs cramped. But I did not make a sound. I just prayed silently. "Jesus, hide me. Jesus, cover me. Jesus, get us across." Finally, the truck slowed down and stopped. I heard voices outside. Men speaking in Arabic. Border guards. My heart was pounding so hard I thought they would hear it. I heard footsteps walking around the truck. I heard the back door open. Light poured in. I held my breath. A guard climbed into the truck and started looking through the boxes. He was so close I could hear him breathing. I closed my eyes and prayed, "Jesus, please make me invisible. Please do not let him see me." The guard moved a few boxes, looked around, then climbed back out. He said something to Youssef that I could not hear. Then the door closed again. The truck started moving. We drove for another 10 minutes. Then Youssef stopped the truck and opened the back door. "We are across," he said quietly. "Welcome to Jordan." I started crying. I climbed out of the truck on shaking legs and fell to my knees on the ground. I kissed the dirt. I lifted my hands toward the sky and said, "Thank you, Jesus." Youssef drove me to a small church in a town near the border. It was not a big building. It was just a house that had been turned into a meeting place for believers. When I walked inside, there were about 20 people sitting in a circle praying. They stopped when they saw me. An older man stood up and smiled. "You must be Mariam," he said. I nodded. He walked over and hugged me. "Welcome, sister. You are safe now. You are home." I broke down and cried in his arms. These were people I had never met, but they loved me like family. They did not care that I was a stranger. They did not care that I was pregnant and alone. They just saw me as their sister in Christ. They prayed over me. They sang songs of thanksgiving. They gave me a place to sleep and promised to help me with whatever I needed. I stayed with that church community for 3 weeks. They helped me find a small apartment. They gave me clothes and food. They connected me with a doctor who agreed to help me when it was time to give birth. 2 months later, I went into labor. It was late at night. The pain started slowly, then grew stronger and stronger. One of the women from the church, her name was Salma, stayed with me the whole time. She held my hand. She prayed with me. She wiped my forehead with a cool cloth. When the pain became unbearable, I cried out, "Jesus, help me!" And I felt his presence. I felt his peace even in the middle of the pain. After many hours, my son was born. The moment I heard his cry, I started sobbing. Salma placed him on my chest. He was small and perfect. His eyes were closed. His little fists were curled up. I looked down at him and whispered, "You are a miracle. You are proof that Jesus is real." I named him Isa. In Arabic, Isa is the name for Jesus. I wanted my son to carry the name of the one who saved us. I wanted him to grow up, knowing that his life was a gift from God. When the women from the church came to visit me, they gathered around my bed and prayed over Isa. They prayed that he would grow strong. They prayed that he would know the Lord. They prayed that his life would be a testimony of God's power. Raising Isa was nothing like I had imagined my life would be. I had grown up in wealth. I had lived in a big house with servants. I had never cooked my own food or cleaned my own floors. But now I was living in a tiny apartment with almost no money. I had to learn how to do everything myself. I learned how to cook simple meals. I learned how to wash clothes by hand. I learned how to budget the little money I had. It was hard. There were nights when I cried because I did not know how I was going to buy food for the next day. There were times when I felt so alone that I wanted to give up. But every time I looked at Isa, I remembered why I had left. I remembered that Jesus had saved me so that my son could live free. And that gave me strength to keep going. The church community supported me. They brought me food. They gave me clothes for Isa. They helped me find small jobs cleaning houses so I could earn money. I was no longer a princess. I was no longer the wife of an imam. I was just Mariam, a single mother trying to survive. And I had never been happier. As Isa grew, I made sure to teach him about Jesus. From the time he could understand words, I told him stories from the Bible. I told him about how Jesus healed the sick, fed the hungry, and loved everyone. I told him about the night in the desert when Jesus saved my life. I told him that he was born because of a miracle. Isa loved those stories. When he was 4 years old, he asked me, "Mama, can I meet Jesus?" I smiled and said, "One day, Habibi. One day we will see him face to face. But for now, he is with us. He is always with us." Isa grew up going to church. He grew up singing worship songs. He grew up praying before meals and before bed. He did not know anything about mosques or imams or the life I'd left behind, and I was grateful for that. I wanted him to grow up free from the fear and shame that had controlled my life for so long. I wanted him to know that he was loved, not because of what he could do, but because of who he was. There were moments when fear tried to come back. Sometimes I would see a man who looked like Ahmed, and my heart would start racing. Sometimes I would hear Arabic being spoken loudly, and I would freeze. Sometimes I would have nightmares about being dragged back to Saudi Arabia, about being tied to that tree again. But every time fear came, I would pray. I would open my Bible and read the words of Jesus. "Do not be afraid. I am with you always." And peace would return. I also started sharing my story with other women. The church I attended began a small group for women who had escaped abuse. Some had run from violent husbands. Some had been trafficked. Some had lost everything. I sat with those women and told them what Jesus had done for me. I told them that no matter how broken they felt, no matter how worthless the world said they were, Jesus saw them and loved them. Many of those women gave their lives to Christ. Many of them found healing, and I realized that my suffering had not been meaningless. God was using my pain to bring hope to others. Years passed. ISA grew into a strong, kind, joyful boy. He loved to read. He loved to ask questions. He loved to help people. One day when he was 7 years old, he came home from school and said, "Mama, my teacher asked where my father is. What should I tell her?" I knelt down in front of him and took his hands. "You can tell her that your father is Jesus," I said. "He is the one who gave you life. He is the one who protects you. He is the one who loves you more than anyone else ever could." ISA smiled. "Okay, Mama. I will tell her that." And he ran off to play. I sat there for a moment, my heart full of gratitude. I thought about the girl I used to be. The girl who believed her worth was tied to her ability to have children. The girl who thought she was cursed. The girl who hung from a tree, waiting to die. That girl was gone. She had been replaced by a woman who knew her worth came from Christ. A woman who had been set free. A woman who was raising a son in the love and truth of Jesus. I am not famous. I do not have money. I do not live in a palace. But I have something far more valuable. I have freedom. I have peace. I have a purpose. And I have Jesus. My name is Mariam. I was born in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. I was married to an Imam who tried to kill me because I could not give him children. I was hung from a tree in the desert and left to die. But Jesus came. He cut me free. He opened my womb. He gave me a son. He brought me out of darkness and into light. And now I live every day to tell others about what he has done. I speak to women who feel trapped. I speak to women who feel worthless. I speak to women who believe there is no way out. And I tell them the truth. You are not forgotten. You are not cursed. You are not a mistake. There is a God who sees you. His name is Jesus. And he will stand between you and death. He will break every chain. He will set you free. This is my story, and I pray it gives hope to anyone who needs it. Because if Jesus can save me, he can save anyone.